August 2022, we received the news of the falling of what I feel is the greatest rapper in this country. Tokollo Magesh succumbed to illness. And I want to do this episode for many reasons, but primarily I want to package it all together by saying the headspace is about asking us the question of what hip-hop means to us as South Africans. Asimo statesman, and because we're in Africa and we're Africans, but we love hip-hop, which traveled to us by way of the cries of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, we made it into something that became our own. Rapping traveled to every part of the world, including this country, and we did with it what all of us could in our conditions. And the most immediate thing is for you to mimic what you hear. A lot of rap, even namhlanje in 2022, as I do this episode, because it might be dated, so is still based on how Americans sound, how they approach, and how they essentially speak. Our slang, our fashion, and our virtual lens of seeing the world is egregiously still influenced by a lens that's more so based on the African American experience than ours. Tokollo Shabalala gave us something which came from the ground of our own soil. He was somebody who truly decolonized rapping for South Africa. The story of Tokollo Shabalala begins through a young boy who came out of an environment that many would consider privileged. Son of a soccer player, Stanley Screamer Shabalala, Tokollo was born into the bedrock of a family which could provide more for him than many could. But that did not alienate him from his environment of Soweto. Magesh was always gassy to the core, and what I mean by that is he always understood what were the best things about the environment that he came from. Magesh was able to tap into the linguistic, the conceptual, and the psychological elements that made up what it means to be a South African and make it cool. You're lying if you think he wasn't influenced by hip-hop. TKZ sampled everything. I mean, lyrically and instrumentally. They sampled Kabelo, Eminem, and numerous other artists. So I think it's been clearly documented that Tokollo, Kabelo, and Zwei were massive fans of hip-hop, like we all were. But the difference with TKZ is they were so-called Model C kids in an era which couldn't allow you to truly come into South Africa if you weren't authentically being South African. The 90s were a different time. And get away with it. We're talking about a time where Arthur was being praised as the King of Kwaito. The Brothers of Peace were doing their own thing. Bumushaka and Oskido were running the game through Kalawa Jasmine. So if you were gonna come through and add your dynamic, it had to be something that reflected the era and the times of the people, and it had to be truly South African. Comes TKZ, the youngest in their peer group, naturally influenced by the fact that they went to schools with white people. So a lot of English filters into their music. You gotta love this place. The music is playing and that's why we're singing. TKZ introduced Kwaito into a world which could go outside of kind of the linguistic construct of not being audible to the Western world. And yet at the very same time, it didn't play into these tropes that so many young rappers today who did grow up in the Model C schools, who did have the benefit, if it is a benefit, of going and being in an engagement with people of other races and cultures, if those things even exist, and come back and bring themselves to engage with their people in terms that could make sense. Nabantu betu. The question is always, who are we rapping for? Magesh always rapped for the South African populace. And people have always accused me, VJ, South Africans are not one people, we're different. Fuck that. The majority of South Africans still live in the townships, are still unemployed, still are not fluent in English, still do not have access to the basic necessities that many of us take for granted. So get the fuck out of here with these conversations that there is no monolithic South African group of people. The undeniable reality of our country is that even post-94, so-called Rainbow Nation, we see the struggles of people divided by privilege, by class, and most importantly by resource. TKZ spoke to that because they were 3 young kids whose parents could give them better, but who still chose to go back to the core. That's why we love them. That's why we do not question the fact that Zwei was a choir singing motherfucker from a Drakensberg High. We don't question the fact that Kabelo speaks for the twang. We don't question the fact that Magesh is the son of a successful South African football player. Why? It's the A word. I always tell South African rappers, you live in this country, you feed from this country, and ultimately your artistic growth will depend on how much you give to this country. This is a transaction. Tokollo gave us from the get-go a lyricism which was influenced by hip-hop but which gave itself to the slang of our country. Gerela kichima pasopa bazozwa. Singamatelu fugas, singamatelu kufa sonke of kanjani. Magesh's lyrics had a way of having a calcified philosophical brevity to them. He had these one-liners that would make you think. Singamatelu ufa sonke of kanjani.
Snackable, daddy. It's snackable shit.
Exemakenge, nisbege, nisnagegele. Tokollo had one-liners that would make you think about what your journey in this South Africa was about. And he would say them to you in a neck that was clear to you as if Jay-Z had spoken to you. On many occasions I have said Magesh is the Jay-Z of South Africa. He might have not had the Jay-Z money, but the charisma, the lyricism, and the influence that he's had on following generations of rappers is undeniable. I'll go as far as saying, could we have a Broke, a Ricky Rick, a Casper on your vest, even an AKA who's unapologetically fed from the South African slang, if there wasn't a Tokollo to help understand how we could possibly rap in ways that are closer to where we come from. Colonization is about forgetting who you are. Decolonization is about coming back to that. Magesh was a decolonizer. Magesh was a legend in the living construct of his work. Ndlovu Yangena didn't only give us fancy one-liners, but he also gave us memorable cultural work that lives on today. I think we think the passing of Magesh is just a cool Kwaito artist who had his time and unfortunately died too early. But for me, I really want to impeach and let people know that a giant, a teacher and a guru and a pioneer and a prototypical rapper has died. If you believe in evolution, they talk about the Homo sapien and this evolutionary chain. Magesh is our Australopithecus, if I'm saying that right. Duh. But he's that link in the chain of how SA hip-hop evolves. Magesh is our blueprint for how to rap in ways that speak to the people of this country. I'll do more episodes on his bars alone, on the profundity of his topics, but I want to focus on Magesh the man. I want to say to you that we haven't just lost a cool Kwaito artist, we've lost a teacher. Because if we can say that our biggest artist today when it comes to rap is the Zuchi Coke Dopes or the Maklera Dope Boys, we need to look for some kind of identity that speaks to who we are as a people. African Americans have been through their process and history, and you damn well know they know where they need to go. in order to achieve what they feel is a sense of empowerment. Why are we, as South Africans, with the Bikos, with the Sobukwes, with the Hanis, still resorting to the influence of America to define who we are? These are our brothers and sisters, these are our people, but yet we have something very unique. We have Vupansula, we have Itsotsi style. We cover the game. Ishalambombo is in our mix, Inombolo is in our blood, Unongoloza is in our history. And yet our slang, our fashion, and our sense of being feels left behind. What has happened to Ama 2000? Are they in an era that somehow has not been able to tap into the rich history of where they come from? I don't know. I don't have the answers to these questions. All I know is that one of the doors that can open up our past and subsequently our future is Tokollo Magesh.
Meaning my kind of music and my kind of genre of music, which is Kwaito. You know, they've always named me as the best lyricist in the country in terms of Kwaito. Basically, Kwaito is like, it's also like rap, but more in a much more ethnic language, but it's still rap. But it's got different sounds and different feels to it.
Maybe something happened between the year 2000, 2005, 6, where SA Hip Hop popped up, and the consequent years after the World Cup that severed the generation afterwards from seeing the importance in our own culture. I mean, I'm a millennial, and I can remember Home Affairs, Yizo School, this nice going up. I can still remember Joma Fela giving us the highest level of comedy. I can still remember Somizi Mhlongo's father, Ndaba Mhlongo, stuttering through our television screens. I can still remember Somizi Mhlongo when he was just a dancer. I can still remember Arthur Mofokate giving us all the different kinds of dances. I can still remember Oskido before he was a DJ and was still trying to rap. I can still remember all of that. Selima Tunzi, Ezim Doti. I can still remember a time where Generations was trying to reimagine South Africa through a new lens. I can imagine all of that. And maybe Ama 2000s lacked that. I don't know. I'm not saying we're better than the following generation. I'm just saying there's something about being South African that feels to me like it's been lost. Because if I listen to the generation today, all I hear is Atlanta, all I hear is New York, and I don't hear us. And I hope at the passing of Magesh, we can hear us. We can hear ourselves. Tokollo gave us so many countless moments to remember ourselves. Kabelo Mamelane once said in a famous clip that after the accident, we lost Magesh. On a tour to Botswana, Magesh had an accident which almost rendered him dead. Head injuries, which had a permanent scar on his head. He was hospitalized for a long time, and I think after that, the mental issues that plagued him were deeper than any of us could imagine. And in the midst of that moment, Wicked's ass releases with the man, teasing him, saying, "What happened to Magesh? Clamping on this Obuya." And I don't think Magesh ever left us. I think Magesh was going through a lot, and at that time as South Africans, we didn't have the skills to know what to do with a hero who has fallen. And I think right now we need to look at ourselves and say maybe a little bit we're to blame for the trajectory of how Magesh's career went. Pro Kid is seen as our best lyricist, but before Pro Kid even thought about rapping in vernac, Magesh was giving us memorabilia, quote after quote after quote after quote. Magesh had a charismatic way of taking the most sophisticated English and bringing it down to us. The reason I'm doing this episode again is as a class to SA rappers. You don't have to rap in vernac, but you have to understand the impact of talking to your own people. If you are not a poet for your own, if you are not a messenger for the experiences around you, are you simply a satellite for America's influence? Magesh was one of us, through us, for us, by us. Fubu singayas. And at the passing of such a great giant, I really want younger generations to understand the impact and the importance of what we've lost. We've lost the first generation of Kwaito artists who were in the balance of the new South Africa and still remembering the most integral parts of what made up Azania. Because there's a difference. But I won't go into that. What I want to go into is the fact that in every song, at every moment, Magesh gave us that Gumkas. Gesh Omega gave us a lyricism which was about capturing our experiences in pleasure and pain. It seems hard to get over, too low to get under, and you're stuck in the middle. And the only way we can go through it is to make a profit. He's off it. It's a quotable from We Love This Place. Magesh didn't only write with a flavor that was about capturing the clubs or Ingodi or Ishipini. He was about considering your existential moment as a person. And if rhythm and poetry, if mastering the ceremony is not about that, I don't know what it's about. A lot of cats online are saying we've lost a Kwaito MC. We've lost an MC, period. We don't need to add the Kwaito. Kwaito is the flavor in which hip-hop manifested itself in this country, but that's another conversation. But I, for one, think we don't need to put a prefix in front of Magesh's work and relegate it to Kwaito. Because motherfucker, he rapped. And any rapper you can think of that's worth a pinch of salt was influenced by Magesh. So from 2022 moving onwards, I want all artists who really care about the history and the future of this country, and as it relates to their role in making what becomes of our future as South Africans, to realize that Magesh was one of our teachers. Magesh will forever be one of our teachers, and that through his catalog we can learn a lot about how to win SA over as a rapper, about how to understand what to and how to decolonize South African hip-hop, because that's what we're dealing with. Hip-hop came to us as an American phenomenon, and in a lot of our heads we still have an American standard to how we measure greatness. That's how we can give Dumi his props and think Big Zulu is whack. Maybe it's not because those two MCs are that much different from each other, but it's maybe because we, through listening to more English raps from the States, are more prone to appreciating bars in English than bars in our own language. How many double entendres, similes, punchlines, metaphors have you heard in your own language? Do you know how hard it is to think of those shits in your own language than it is in English? It's an innovative move, because we only heard rap in English. So for anybody who decides to skip over and do something different, it's a whole different ball game. So maybe, just maybe, you should give more credit to H2O than you do to me. Maybe, just maybe, you should give more credit to Big Zulu than you do maybe Lymphatic Tabs. Maybe it's really harder because of colonialism to rap in your own fucking mother tongue than it is to be like, yeah, and I'm saying I'm VJ and I'm dope like that. And I'm guilty of that too, because I'm doing this episode in English with no subtitles. But I'm trying my best to give honor to an MC who was about changing that. My name is VJ, the brother from the ancient mother. And if there's anything I hope you learn from this episode, is that we ain't gonna make it as a culture in South Africa without authenticity. Links to the description about anything you want to know about Magesh are there. Thank you for supporting the Headspace, and I will continue to annoy you about being authentic, because we've lost Magesh and we still have Booker Two Shoes. We still have many who are alive to teach us these lessons. And if the younger generation are not learning, then maybe it's all a waste of time. I don't know. I don't have the answer to these questions. If you do, holler at me at the comment section. All I know is that my heart is hurting, but my spirit is confident. Because I do think, when I hear a Maclera, when I hear 25K, I'm like, yo, there's hope. There might be hope. But check you out.
How dope was Tokollo, bro? Because till this day,
Too dope,
bro.
Too dope.
Nah,
Oh,
he doesn't get his
man.
flowers, though.
No,
he doesn't.
Oh, dude,
Bro.
like for real, like there's the Magesh before the car accident, and the Magesh before the car, after the car accident, and I don't know. We lost something in that car accident.
Shit, man.
I don't want to lie. That, like, outside of the car accident, you don't mess with Magesh on the mic. Like, I always knew my place. You know? I always knew my place, and it was just sitting in the pocket, learning. Learn. Like, I learned from the best. I walked with the best to ever do it in this country. For real, for real, for real.
Sure.
Yeah, man. I've seen that guy do things that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I was there for all of it, right? I saw it.
Sure.
Magesh doesn't get enough of his flowers, man.
What does he?
For real.
What would he do? Like, does he write on the spot? Does he freestyle?
Everything.
Sure.
Everything. Everything. Now, Magesh is the business, man. For real, for real. He's the guy that put me on. You know, he's the guy that believed in me. You know, that, in fact, we started a group instead of 8.
It was called Two?
Two Slice.
Two Slice,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. We started a group, and yeah, he always inspired me.
Uhamba nobani pro kid or Magesh?
Oh, Magesh ntwana angiyadlala. Yazi nje uMagesh ngiyamncanywa Joe.
Sure.
Like I actually say I think he's underappreciated, Joe. Yo mfana Magesh is underappreciated. I know Booga Love is dope and all of that, and he, you know, he's the ladies' man, you know, the pretty boy who looks, you know, muscles as well, you know. But Magesh, from a songwriter perspective, yo, Magesh is sick, Joe. And there's this classic, the way he interprets the music and the way he blends with the beat, I don't think anyone in TKZ has got that level of professionality and prowess